So based on that, I think there's a lot that we can. There's some alignment to what we're doing in the AI world. And one of the studies that I've read recently that really got my attention is Ethan Mollick, professor that we have quoted a number of times on the show already, has come out with his research along with a bunch of teammates from Harvard, Procter and Gamble, looking at the work that people did along with AI, and found that basically an individual using AI and having figured out how to use it, it basically does work that is closer to the level, more close to the level of what a team is able to do, working in conjunction, working productively, working collaboratively. But a team using AI has even greater benefits as they're able to push back both against their own teammates as well as get the assumptions that AI provides to make sure they're not overlooking any standard issues or any sort of compliance or governance challenges that are typically taken for granted. Having AI as this additional level of both oversight and conversation in getting work done ended up being significantly more productive. And this held both for, call it, average production teams and individuals, as well as higher level working productivity workers and teams.
But what I think is so I think there are two dimensions to this, right? Whereas there was team level, but then there was also the type of focus, right? Where was
Yes.
this being applied? And one of the things I thought was interesting is this idea that basically you get a lot more value through innovation versus a focus on efficiency or productivity. And I thought that was actually quite interesting in terms of looking at sort of both of those dimensions. And I personally, from being a self-proclaimed power user of generative AI, see that on both fronts, right? It's funny, until I read this article, I didn't really process it, but I use Gen AI a lot of times to replicate or to take the place of having a team. I'm moving too fast. I don't have time to assemble a team and have a big workshop around something, but I need that sort of brainstorming function where I'm kicking ideas around and doing it. And I actually use Gen AI to do that, to give me an outside perspective that I can't generate on my own. And so when I read that, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's happening. That's why it's making, these thought processes more solid. But then the flip side of it is then, so that is how you apply AI. And then the second part of the question, or maybe it's the first part, is what are you applying it on? Are you
Mhm.
applying it to simply trying to take something like you started with, right, that is running, and try to make it more efficient in some way? Or are you using AI to actually transform that, to completely look at it from a whole different perspective? And so unsurprisingly, because I I spent most of the last decade talking about digital transformation, and that has been basically my story. It's like digital transformation is not simply making something more efficient. It's about using the innovations in technology to completely transform the way you are working, to completely transform how you're doing things. So to me, this is a no-brainer. But I have some caveats to it, and so I want to dig in a second. But I mean, I did. How did you see those two different pieces sort of playing off one another?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that uh, as these professionals were trying to figure out how to be more productive, that one angle that is important about the study is that everybody who was involved was already an expert in one core area. We were either talking about commercial experts or technical research experts who were involved in using AI. So they already had an elite skill that they were trying to optimize. And sometimes when we know that when we're trying to get things done in the workplace, we have to work at a cross-departmental level and take a lot of things into account. But the truth is, some of the things we're looking at only require an average level of knowledge, whereas some require an elite level of knowledge. And being able to know the difference is also important because honestly, AI is very useful. GPT-4 or Claude, 3.7. These are great models that can provide really great answers, but you have to be able to contextualize when they're giving you accurate information, when they are contextually right or wrong. when they may have overlooked something that can't be taken for granted. You still have to provide a little bit of guidance and understanding. And if you are an expert, that is trivial to fill in the gaps. Whereas if you are not expert, I think you can easily fall into traps with AI. So that expertise, I think, was an important piece of the puzzle in this study.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, and I think it's exactly why we saw that. Having the team and the AI together was the most potent combination because you got all of that different perspective. The closing paragraph of this study that you're referring to, I think is actually salient for two reasons. So I'm actually going to just read it real quick. It says, the most exciting implication may be that AI doesn't just automate existing tasks, it changes how we think about work itself. The future of work isn't just about individuals adapting to AI. It's about organizations reimagining the fundamental nature of teamwork and management structures themselves. And that's a challenge that will require not just technological solutions, but new organizational thinking. And we try to end this before we get to the fun stuff in a second with, hey, if you're a CIO, how do you process all of this news? And to me, that's the money paragraph, right? Because if you're a CIO today, this is what you need to be thinking. And you need to be looking at this from all these perspectives. And there's so much to unpack. I mean, we could probably talk an hour on that one paragraph, because if I break that apart, that speaks to a whole bunch of things, some of which you just alluded to, right? One is your subject matter experts within your organization, the people that know your business the best, are absolutely vital to this process, right? This is not about replacing particularly those that have that institutional tribal knowledge, right? It is about augmenting them and leveraging them because they're that key linchpin around all of this. Secondly, adoption is critical. I have to be able to deploy this in a way that people actually start using it and they understand how to use it. If I simply give them and this is why I think Microsoft Copilot, as an example, just to pick on them for a second, struggled. Just giving people a chatbot and saying, knock yourself out, doesn't deliver these sort of results. Third, you have to be addressing this organizationally, not just individually. So they're talking about the team, but it's also about how you weave this into organizational dynamics in a way that isn't just about trying to mandate use, about how do you integrate it into the workflows themselves. And this goes back to that whole thinking. And I'm going to add one last piece to this. And this is where I don't want to say take umbrage, but I think I don't find these to be mutually exclusive, going back to the question of productivity versus innovation. One of the things that I would tell people when I was focusing on digital transformation all the time is that transformation needs to be the objective and the key, but you can't start there. You have to start by having the building blocks, because nobody wants to talk about transformation, how you're going to change everything if, and this is what I would say back then, if you can't deliver a laptop to that new employee in less than 2 weeks, right? If your systems are so broken, if you're so inefficient that you can't even function effectively, then you haven't earned the right to talk about how we're going to change everything. And so when we think about how you apply AI here, I think you have both of that as well, right? The starting point often is to apply AI around these productivity gains to demonstrate it helps drive cultural adoption, helps demonstrate the value, helps get people used to thinking about this, and it then earns you the right to this next conversation. I think the big distinction here is you just can't stop at that first one. You can't say that's enough. It has to be part of a longer plan of where you go. And I think that's like I said, I could go forever just on this one paragraph.
Yes. And I'm sure you do this in your day-to-day work at Symphony AI. A little plug there. But seriously, I think it's really important to understand the difference between productivity and innovation here. And I will give another quick plug that I think that this study builds thematically on a prior study done by a couple guys who I've followed pretty closely throughout the years, Bill Schmarzo and Mark Staus. They worked on a study to quantify the economic impact of generative AI back in September of this last year, which we now know is an eternity in AI terms. But they actually found a very similar point that when you're using generative AI from an economic perspective, it's really important to look at innovation versus productivity if you're actually trying to get that ROI that we all want from our technical investments. They saw a 3x improvement in outcomes when the project was innovation based.